Welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me as he always does is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you as always.
Great to see you. Thank you.
So President Obama now is about to make a very important foreign policy speech. What are the stakes here for him?
Well, the president's been under a great deal of criticism for a foreign policy that seems to be, at best, lumbering and confused, and at worst, completely absent. And I think the president here is going to try to define to his critics and to his supporters what his foreign policy is about. There's been a big debate since he's taken office as to what the Obama Doctrine is. I think what he's going to try to do here for the remaining time in his tenure is to define where his foreign policy is going and how he defines it. And part of that, Bob, is defense against the criticism that we don't really have a foreign policy and we're losing ground every place around the world, from Ukraine to South China Sea to Syria. But it's also a chance for the president to reaffirm certain principles that he feels are important. The ability to not only define but to defend international norms and principles, which is a hard statement and argument to make, but something that he feels deeply about, and I think you'll see in the speech.
Now, the White House would say that the president on the foreign policy side has done a couple of things. He's wound down the war in Iraq. He's winding down the war in Afghanistan. And in fact, the National Security Council has put out some information about troop levels. This is in advance of the speech, so what are they trying to signal here? Well,
I think they are trying to signal, especially a year after the speech he gave at the National Defense University, which was a war on terror speech, where he really made the case for winding down the wars, not just our presence in Iraq and even Afghanistan, but even our wartime footing. And so this, I think, is an attempt to say, look, we are winding down responsibly our presence in places like Afghanistan. We're going to have a set number of troops and a drawdown over the next couple of years. We're going to keep 9,800 or 10,000 or so to start with and draw them down. And I think then he's going to make the argument that we as a country can not only be safe and secure, but have to ultimately get off this wartime footing. Now, critics will say, look, it's one thing to say you're going to get out of places like Iraq and Afghanistan and to wind that down responsibly. That's fine. But the reality is the world's not getting any safer. And frankly, in the absence of American influence and strategy and leadership, things are getting worse, not better. Al-Qaeda's metastasized. Syria is getting worse. Russia and China are feeling their oats and being very aggressive. And so the world is not getting any less dangerous. It's getting more dangerous, and the absence of policy is only exacerbating that.
Talk to me just for a minute about the timing here. There's 2.5 years left in the president's term. I mean, the clock is working against him now to try to make a difference.
Right. Every president has the ability to execute foreign policy effectively in a second term, unlike domestic policy, where they turn into a lame duck much sooner. That said, the clock is ticking here. The president is nearing sort of the end stages of his administration, and I think he wants to, while he still has influence, while he still has the ability to affect things domestically and internationally, to be able to set the course for his foreign policy, and frankly, to set a narrative to explain what has happened to date and what is going to happen in the next 2 years. And I think the president has really staked his political claim on success in the foreign policy realm on the idea of ending wars, ending our presence in Iraq, winding down in Afghanistan, winning the war against Al-Qaeda core, decimating them, that's the argument, and also then putting us on a long-term secure footing, not getting into any other additional wars and battles. And for, I think, this president, that would be a success. The question is, does that really put us on a safe footing moving forward?
And just quickly to wrap up, the president has long been criticized, both internationally and domestically, for what people call leading from behind. Can he change that opinion with his speech?
Well, I think he can change it, but he's still going to articulate the need to share the burden internationally. So you're still going to hear him articulate the fact that the international community, other actors, have to step up and deal with the hard problems facing the world. He's still going to talk about American leadership, but I think his vision is that we are going to be in a supporting role around the world as opposed to leading the world on all these issues. And that's where you see the criticism, and I think that's where the tension lies.
We should mention the speech is Wednesday at West Point, so very symbolic.
That's right. And always presidents have used these occasions to visit the service academies, the commencement addresses, to give speeches on national security and foreign policy. And the president's going to make this a central speech for foreign policy moving forward.
Very interesting. We'll watch. Juan, thanks as always. And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.